You can remember and pay tribute by using words and song. This artist simply uses his hands.
The story has to be great.
Molding and shaping the lines of the past, Brian Hanlon pulls from the glory days of his subjects, respecting their era, their accomplishments, and what it all means.
It's more important, the subject matter, than even the aesthetics. That's secondary. Without that, I don't think there's good sculpture. There's not good connection with people and looking at the art.
One of the greatest point guards of all time.
His purpose in this work helps in the creation of legacy in clay and then bronze. It's the type of story he likes to tell.
If the story is interesting to me, I know I'm going to be able to make a good sculpture. If it's not an interesting person, an interesting story, there's no way the sculpture's going to be good.
Working between the shadows of this drafty, abandoned chicken coop is where Hanlon creates his timeless art.
You can use water-based clay or oil-based. This is oil-based, it never dries out. Retired baseball coach.
His lawn is his working gallery, surrounded by giants of sport. There's Yogi, and then Shaq, a champion from the streets, the young legend from the gridiron, and a wizard from the hardwood.
Yeah, he needs a little touch-up. Bob Cousy, part of the 1947 National Championship D1 basketball team from Holy Cross.
And he was a freshman when they won. You imagine that. 17-year-old kid. While I'm building it, I'm trying to think of, you know, the person that isn't educated on my level in sculpture, looking at it. Can they actually relate to it? Are they going to get something out of this? Will they learn something from the sculpture and maybe even get inspired? You have to create traditions, and traditions are sometimes created with monuments. He had a very stiff style of dribbling, and that's why I made the piece upright like this.
It was decades ago, after he built his first statue in his Boston University dorm room, that the artist knew what he would be doing for the rest of his life.
I love the idea of pushing your physical limits, and I don't think there's too many people that can't relate to that.
By the time he finished school, and after moving through what he called his own Renaissance period, Hanlon settled in Toms River, New Jersey, and began his work, and never looked for another job.
I do love it.
For the sculptor, this storyteller of sorts, he feels like he was handpicked for this work, as part of his own story.
I was pretty lucky to see, like, well, my life is going to be like a book, and each page should be something of a quality subject. So I already saw that as a young man, and I really was fortunate in that. And I continue to do that. You know, the Shaq page, the Yogi page, Lavender page, that's pretty good pages, you know?
Hanlon's touch breathes the life into his work. His are the monuments that stand tall, as to look out over those old enough to remember, so that they may reach out and tell those who were too young and help them understand.
There was another great sculptor, he worked in chicken coops. His name was George Siegel, very famous. His work was very dark and very mundane, but that was his signature, and that's what made him so famous. My work is very different than his as far as the light goes. It's more spiritual in nature, whereas his was completely void of spirituality. Whereas when I make a sculpture, I try to create a soul in the piece.
Done.
Okay, now.
Outside his studio, Hanlon handles these larger-than-life statues like moving pieces on a chessboard.
Let him go on the wheels.
But he doesn't play games with his work.
That's good.
He's busy, and the phone calls keep coming. His statues are now being commissioned across the country and abroad. It seems like everyone who wants to pay tribute knows who to call.
I'd be honored to help you out with this.
Here we caught Hanlon speaking to his newest customer, the National Football League.
Is it possible to do this by the end of the season? And it is. The answer is yes, but I would need to start, yesterday.
helping to leave that legacy with the champion that stands in a park,
Great man.
the team that took on the world, or with the passing of the legend who now lives near the end zone. The artist will continue to use his hands while adding to the pages of his book of life and his own legacy with bronze.
I think the most unique thing that I leave is a spiritual connection with the piece to the people who live in that community. That inspires me a lot to be a better sculptor, to be more connected with the community. That's why I do what I do. And I'm a lucky man. I get to do a job I love.